Hi, everybody. It's Catherine and Satara from Parent to Parent of Georgia, and we're here with another Three Things Thursday. We're doing a series on back to school. I know I'm still adjusting to being back off of the holiday vacation time, but we're talking today about progress reports. So we're focusing on things that are happening halfway through the school year, and some of the things that happen periodically throughout the year are progress reports. I know I would get them and I didn't always know what they were or how they related to my child. I would kind of just throw them in a pile, but that was not the good thing to do. So we're going to talk about understanding IEP progress reports. We tend to spend as parents a lot of time on the IEP as a whole when we are around the time of having an IEP meeting. But the IEP is actually like in place and clicking along all year long. And one of the ways we're checking in on it is these progress reports. You should be getting them about every 90 days or sooner. A lot of times I see every 9 weeks. It's a typical timeline that I've seen in a lot of IEPs in Georgia. And so hopefully by now you've gotten 1 or 2 progress reports this school year. The progress reports are a way of checking in on the goals that you spent so much time developing in the IEP meetings. You don't have to wait until the IEP meeting and the annual to change goals. The progress report is a way of seeing how things are going, and if a new goal needs to be added because a child has made so much progress on it, you can do that mid-year. If a child hasn't made any progress on a goal, for example, after 5 months, then you can think about readjusting that goal to make it something that's more achievable. And you can always ask for the raw data that the schools are using to write up these progress reports that hopefully you're getting. And it's mentioned in the IEP how often you're supposed to get them, usually under the goals section. But let's just talk a little bit about like a sample goal and why it's meets the SMART standard, which we have on our little blackboard there on the graphic. So a sample goal, Sandra will identify 5 functional sight words in 3 out of 5 attempts with verbal visual prompt with a baseline of 40% and with a target of 65%, with other criteria of using assistive technology, AT, and or pictures completed by 5/17/2022. Methods of evaluation, teacher observation, and data collection using the data form. It's a very typical sounding goal. And then the progress report would say, okay, as of 12:30, so as of halfway through the school year, maybe not as of 12:30, because probably everyone's at home by then watching TV in their pajamas, hopefully, but as of some point in mid-school year, Sandra is able to successfully identify 10 sight words with 80% accuracy. So right away, you can tell that this is a SMART goal. It's specific, it's achievable because the baseline is 40%. The goal is up to 65%. So that's attainable. It's relevant and time bound because we see that there's a deadline of May 2022. There's a data form, so it's very objective as to how much she can do. It's not a subjective thing like, oh, she got better at reading. It's really specifically how many sight words does Sandra know? And then you look at the report and it says she can identify 10 sight words with 80% accuracy. So she's in some ways met the goal, but in other ways she hasn't. This might be a good time to revisit the goal and maybe add some new sight words she doesn't know and increase the accuracy for the 10 she's still struggling with. So it's a good way to just kind of keep tabs on what's going on with the IEP. It's always a good idea to look at the progress reports and look at the IEP together if you are organized enough to do that. And sometimes, we don't want to think about these things because it's upsetting and emotional to think about IEPs all the time, but the more we stay on top of it, the better it is for the kids.
So thanks, Catherine. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate what Catherine said about progress reports. So we just have some tips here. As Catherine said, definitely the goal should be SMART. So you can't really have a good progress report if the goal is not measurable or the goal is not attainable or it's not time bound. Then the progress report is not reflective. I cannot reflect any of that. So having a SMART goal is very, very important. So if you find that any of the goals in your IEP or your child's IEP is not a SMART goal, then also might be a chance to kind of tweak that goal to make it a SMART goal. And then check to see if your child is making adequate progress based on the goal. So the example that Catherine just said. So it's kind of like a mixed bag. You know, in that example, there were 15 sight words that Sandra had to, you know, that was a goal that she had to meet 65%, but she's doing 10 and she's doing it at 80%. So it might be time to kind of maybe change the goal or amend it or add a new goal. It's really important. So if your child is not making adequate progress, then it's time to look at it. If your child has made adequate progress, then it's time to look at it, because you don't want, sometimes our kids, you know, they're bored and they're frustrated, and you get behaviors that come in because you're doing the same goal over and over again when they've already know it or they've already got it. So making sure that your child, making sure that the goal is still pertinent and relevant. And this is a good time to do it halfway through the school year. The other thing I think that is really critical, that we do focus a lot on the goals, and we've talked a lot about SMART goals, but the strategies and the tools that are being used to implement the goals is really important. So I'll give you an example. There was a behavior goal that this child, in this child's IEP, and there were several interventions that were laid out, and the teacher, you know, with fidelity was trying to do it, but the child was not making any progress on those goals. And so one of the things that came to light was all the strategies used were more verbal, and this child had auditory processing disorder. And so the child was actually not processing all the verbal strategies that were being used. So that's what we figured out. And we were like, okay, let's have the same goal, but switch the strategy from verbal to visual and see if we can get any progress on this goal. So really making sure that the strategies being used or the tools that are being used to implement the goals are relevant and actually work towards your child, and you know it's actually applicable, and your child can actually understand them in the example that I gave you. So asking those questions to your IEP team is important. And then using your child's strengths can always increase the success rate. And this is not my example, but an example given to me by a parent, and she talked about how math was was one of the big issues for her daughter, and she had graphing as one of her goals. And her daughter was very interested in ballet and went for ballet classes. So her teacher, who's super creative, did a life-size grid on, you know, and asked her and gave her the coordinates and asked her to make a ballet move from one coordinate to the other coordinate. And this really motivated her daughter to kind of learn, because she really didn't, this was such a hard concept for her to grasp, but using a strength that she had and an interest that she had and converting that into a goal that she could achieve was, I thought, a brilliant way of executing a goal and getting a child to kind of learn something that's hard for them. So really thinking about your child's strengths is so important, and finding creative ways to weave that into the goal really will increase the success rate of your child achieving it, and they'll have fun doing it too. So it's, you know, this child just graduated from learning basics of how to graphing to much more complicated, because she was so enthusiastic about doing it. It was a fun thing to do. And last but not the least, I think most important is, if you don't understand the progress report, there are so many numbers that are there in there, you know, so they talk about, you know, the baseline of 45% with the goal of 65%, 3 out of 5 trials. And like, what is this? I don't understand it. And then the progress report might said is progressing with at 50%, you know, so what does that 50% mean? If you have questions about those things, sit down with your teacher or whoever is putting that data together for that particular goal. You do not have to call for a full IEP meeting to do this. You can just reach out. So if it's a speech therapy and you don't understand the way the progress report is written, reach out to your speech therapist and ask them if you could spend a 30-minute meeting to figure out what the progress means. So reach out to your team. They're there to help you. They're there to help you understand all the things that are written in your child's IEP, including the progress report. So again, halfway through the school year, good time for all of us to look at that progress report, see where our child is, and we still have another half of the school year to implement the changes that we're making and make sure that our child is successful. So I hope you found this session interesting, and like this entire month, we were doing halfway through the school year. So next week, we're going to do transitioning to another school or class next year. So now is a good time to start thinking about it if your child is moving from 5th grade to middle school and 6th grade, or if your child is moving from 9th grade to 10th grade in the same high school. Some of the things that you can think about. So Catherine, you had anything that you want to share?
No, that's great. I know that's going to be a great session next week. That was a big thing for my kids. They were, there's a lot of anxiety sometimes about switching schools. So it'll be good to, for parents to learn about that topic.
Awesome. And as always, our number is there and our email at our website. You can always contact us for more information. So thank you, Catherine, for joining me today on our Three Things Thursday, and I'll see everybody next week.
Thanks, Satara.